I don't know if I'll be able to condense my message down to 10 minutes or not, but I'm going to work at it. Maybe talk a little faster than I normally do, so that maybe you can still kind of understand me here. But most people are familiar with the story of the Israelites being freed from bondage after God sent so many plagues to Egypt that Pharaoh had no choice but to let them go. So they took off out into the wilderness, which was a desert, and it soon became very apparent to them that perhaps they didn't make the right decision or the timing wasn't right, because they got out there and soon discovered there's no water. And, well, duh, why wasn't Moses prepared for this? He was the leader, in fact, and what common theme throughout all that journey, remember they were out in the wilderness for 40 years before they got to Canaan, and so he was hearing all of this. He was the one who kept getting all the crap from the people because things weren't going quite right. And it went on and on and on, and here was another situation of that. What are we going to drink? You brought us out here to die in the desert without any water. And if Moses had been prepared, he'd have gone down to the AAA office and he could have found the right route to get on through, and they'd have had plenty of places to stop and refresh themselves, or looked at Google Maps and he could have seen all the watering holes. The key there, of course, is to get to them before the camel caravan got there. They want to get ahead of that. But nonetheless, is when Moses was catching all the flack for the fact that there was no water, and what were they going to do? Now, they had become accustomed, the Hebrew people, to God intervening directly in their history, so that God provided, continued to provide whenever they had need. Remember the manna falling from heaven when they had no food. And so they weren't, they were always looking for something maybe it's going to fall from heaven that take care of their problems, or God was going to intervene directly in their lives to take care of their issues as they arose. But that didn't seem to be happening here. At least they couldn't see any evidence that God was going to bring buckets of water out there for them that they could ladle out and drink, and also for their livestock. And so there was a lot of quarreling, and of course Moses was the point man on that. And so eventually God did intervene directly, and he instructed Moses to take his rod that he parted the sea with and go out and with some elders and strike a rock, and sure enough, water began to trickle out of there. And they were able to drink their fill just as they wanted. So they counted on Moses to lead them through this wilderness experience onto the promised land, not expecting necessarily that for 40 years they were going to face all this hardship and that he wasn't necessarily going to be able to provide for them immediately. But sure enough, they eventually made it, but they had to have some intervention. That God had to provide for them through their journey. That someone was always there, and it was God, whom they eventually came to trust to get them through this experience and became a people in the promised land of Canaan. Now, a wilderness experience is something that we don't think of it this way, but we all go through from time to time. We all go through a period of darkness, of hardship, in which we just can't see the light. It seems like the clouds keep getting lower and lower and lower over us, and we just can't find our way out. And it's hard for us to imagine having a severe addiction of some kind, and we just can't find our way out of it. It's hard to imagine the depths of despair that people go through when they have a situation like that, and they just don't know how. They don't have the willpower or the strength, or the addiction is so strong they can't find their way out. And it's often said that you have to hit rock bottom, whether it's alcohol or drugs or something else, before you can finally find your way out. But something they don't always recognize is someone will always be there to help lead them out of this experience. Someone will always be there at some point. Whether it's intervention from a professional organization or individuals who have always been with them to try to encourage them to change their habits. But eventually you recognize that this person is there walking with you. The same thing can happen with people who suddenly lose a job and their means of livelihood and their family suffers, and they wonder, how in the world are we going to get out of this mess that we're in? Not always recognizing that there are people right alongside you, maybe not directly intervening with a cash subsidy for you, but are there with encouragement to walk with you, to help you through this time of darkness and despair. Despair is a wilderness experience, and we can get lost in that without realizing and understanding, how can we get out of this? It just seems hopeless at times, but there is someone there. There are people who will walk with us through these experiences. And it's something that we recognize that God doesn't always now, as He did in the biblical times, directly intervene in history. We can't see the hand of God directly, but it seems God is still acting indirectly through people who care about us. God is working through those people. Those people are hearing the voice of God to reach out to those who are suffering and who need intervention and need help. There are many people right here in this room who have heard the voice of God and are working with people who need help, who are suffering, who need intervention, and just need encouragement and someone to strengthen them as they go through this journey. Now, there are many people, maybe in this congregation, who feel that this church is going through its own wilderness experience, that things aren't the way that they used to be. We haven't been here as long as many of you have, so we don't remember when this building was full on a Sunday morning. And it seems like with each passing year, let's say there's more seating availability than there used to be. And things have changed. People think that maybe we're going through a period where the dark clouds are descending, and how are we going to find our way out? About 2 months ago, a leadership team sat in a room in front of a laptop computer, and through the magic of electronics and so forth, we were able to see Stan Dewick speaking to us, and we could speak to him. Stan is a congregational life advisor or consultant for Church of the Brethren, and we're talking with him about perhaps providing some insight into us. And I remember something that he said, that he could help us through our grieving process. And when he said that, it hit me. Grieving? We're grieving? I didn't feel grief. Now, some of you may, because of the dramatic change that has occurred in this church over the years, because of the loss of so many people. We have lost, for a variety of reasons, some people that we deeply care about, some through death, some through moving away, and others through an issue that we've taken on that has caused some individuals to not want to continue to be a part of us. But I don't see that as grieving. I feel the loss, certainly, of some dear friends and some mourning, but grieving, no. Instead, my own feelings about this may seem inappropriate, but my sense is that, I'm rejoicing. That seems strange. Not over the loss, but I'm rejoicing over the fact that all of you are still here. In spite of what we've gone through, there can be 5 or 10 Rogers out there marching around in front of this church with their message of hate. But we are committed to a radical ministry here by being called by God to participate in that and to lead this community in that. That's worth rejoicing, because you are still here working with us as a community to carry out that ministry that God has called us to. That's worth celebrating. We're still here. Now, it may seem that, particularly when you're standing up here, we see all the what looks like a lot of empty seats, but it's all just an illusion of sorts in that it seems empty because we're in a large building. If we were in a sanctuary half this size, we'd be crowded together. And our sense of what our community is like would be much different. We'd feel so much different about it because it would seem so much fuller. So it's a matter of perspective. We still have people here committed to our radical ministry. But the key that I want to make of this is that we're not walking this journey alone. There are other congregations who have gone out ahead of us and paved the way for us and have advised us on how to go through some of our processes. There are congregations who are dwindling in numbers who can also provide insight into how to get through this and how to strengthen ourselves and our ministries. We still have strong ministries here in spite of numbers, and those ministries are going to continue because we have people who have walked ahead of us and continue to walk with us as we journey through our transitions as a congregation. God is working through others to help us through this. And as we continue to progress through all of our changes here, we are going to be able to pass on that wisdom to others and walk through it with other congregations and other individuals to help them with this journey too. We are a strong congregation in spite of numbers. We have so much to offer into this community and to others, to walk with them, to help them find their own vision and their own strength, the strengths that are internal to them. We're able to do that as others are able to do that for us. And we continue in that vein because God has appointed others to walk with us, and God has chosen us for a specialized radical ministry that we can bring to others with our own message and how we live our own lives out in the community. We are that person, that congregation, that group of individuals, regardless of our numbers, whom God has chosen to lead the Christians out of the wilderness that we find ourselves in. Amen.